Marcus Kane stood in the center of the octagon cage, his muscular arms crossed over his chest, watching his students with the eyes of a predator. The elite combat gym was his kingdom and everyone knew it. The sound of fists hitting heavy bags echoed through the massive space, mixing with the grunts of fighters and the squeak of shoes on the blue training mats. "Come on, Tommy. My grandmother hits harder than that," Marcus shouted at a young fighter practicing his combinations. "You want to be a champion or a joke? Because right now you're looking like a joke." Tommy, a 19-year-old kid with dreams of going pro, pushed harder, sweat pouring down his face. Marcus had a way of getting results, but his methods left a bitter taste in everyone's mouth. He wasn't just tough. He was mean. There was a difference, and everyone at the gym felt it. Marcus had built Elite Combat Gym from nothing. 5 years ago, it was just a rundown warehouse in downtown Chicago. Now it was one of the most respected MMA training facilities in the Midwest. Fighters came from 3 states away to train under Marcus Kane. He had produced 2 regional champions and 1 fighter who'd made it to the national level. His success was undeniable. His ego was even bigger. Water break. 2 minutes, Marcus called out, clapping his hands twice. The students scattered to the benches, gasping for air, grabbing their water bottles like they were lifelines. Marcus walked over to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago streets. His reflection stared back at him. At 34, he was in the best shape of his life. His dark hair was cut military short, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, and his body was a testament to years of dedication. He'd come a long way from the skinny kid growing up in the South Side projects. That's why he pushed so hard. That's why he demanded perfection. He knew what it took to escape poverty, to make something of yourself. Or at least that's what he told himself. The evening sun was starting to set when the last class finished. Students filed out, some limping, all exhausted. Marcus's assistant coach, Jake Rodriguez, started helping students with their gear. "Good work today, boss," Jake said, though his tone lacked enthusiasm. Jake had been with Marcus for 3 years. He was a good coach, patient with the students in ways Marcus never was. They balanced each other out, though lately Jake had been growing tired of Marcus's attitude. "Yeah, well, good isn't enough. We need great," Marcus replied, already thinking about tomorrow's training schedule. Tommy still dropping his right hand. "And don't even get me started on Michelle's footwork." Jake just nodded. He'd learned that arguing with Marcus was pointless. As the gym emptied out, Marcus headed to his office, a glass-enclosed space overlooking the main training floor. He had paperwork to finish, new clients to review, and a podcast interview to prepare for. Marcus Kane wasn't just building fighters, he was building a brand. His Instagram had over 50,000 followers, and his YouTube channel was growing every week. He was becoming a name in the MMA world. Around 9 o'clock, Marcus heard the front door open. He didn't need to look up to know who it was. Samuel Washington pushed his cleaning cart through the entrance, moving with the slow, deliberate pace of a man who'd worked long hours his entire life. At 58 years old, Sam's hair was completely gray, cut close to his scalp. His face carried the kind of lines that came from both hardship and laughter. He wore the same thing every night, simple blue work pants, a gray shirt with elite maintenance stitched on the pocket, and work boots that had seen better days. "Evening," Sam said quietly, his deep voice carrying a gentle dignity. Marcus didn't respond. He never did. Sam didn't expect one. He'd been cleaning the Elite Combat Gym for almost 2 years now. The job was simple: mop the floors, wipe down the equipment, clean the bathrooms, take out the trash. He showed up at 9 p.m. and left around midnight, 5 nights a week. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady. And at his age, steady was what mattered. Sam started his routine in the locker rooms, as he always did. He moved quietly, efficiently, taking pride in his work even if nobody noticed. His grandmother had taught him that long ago. Do every job like God himself is watching. It didn't matter if you were a doctor or a janitor. Work was work, and dignity wasn't found in the title but in how you carried yourself. Marcus finally emerged from his office around 9:30, gym bag over his shoulder. He was heading home but stopped when he saw Sam mopping near the octagon. "Make sure you get under the benches tonight," Marcus said, not looking at Sam directly. "Someone spilled a protein shake earlier, and it's probably sticky." "Yes, sir. I'll take care of it," Sam replied. Marcus started to leave, then paused. A couple of his advanced students had just walked in for some late-night training. Marcus loved this. The dedicated ones. The ones who trained when everyone else was home watching TV. "Coach, you sticking around?" One of them called out. Marcus's face lit up. "Yeah, let me see what you guys are working on." The two fighters, both in their 20s, started warming up. Marcus dropped his bag and walked over, immediately slipping into coach mode. Sam continued mopping nearby, invisible as always. "So I was thinking about that armbar escape you showed us," one fighter said. "I tried it at open mat last weekend and—" He was interrupted by Sam's mop bucket accidentally bumping into the cage wall. It made a loud clang in the quiet gym. Marcus's head snapped around. "Hey, we're trying to train here. Can you clean somewhere else?" "My apologies," Sam said, moving his bucket away. "I'll come back to this area." But Marcus was already irritated. He'd been riding a wave of frustration all day. Tommy's sloppy technique, the podcast host who'd rescheduled their interview, and now this. "You know what? This is a professional training facility," Marcus said, his voice rising. "Maybe try being a little more careful. Some of us are actually trying to build something here." The two students exchanged uncomfortable glances. Sam simply nodded, his face expressionless, and wheeled his cart toward the other side of the gym. "Sorry, coach," one of the students said quietly. "Don't apologize. You're paying good money to train here. You shouldn't have to deal with distractions," Marcus said, loud enough for Sam to hear. Jake, who was still in the gym organizing equipment, felt his jaw tighten. This wasn't the first time Marcus had spoken to Sam like that. It was getting worse. Sam disappeared into the locker room area and Marcus refocused on his students. But something had shifted in the gym's atmosphere. The two fighters trained for another 20 minutes, then made excuses about having work early the next morning. They left quickly. Jake approached Marcus as he was finally heading out. "Man, you don't have to talk to Sam like that," Jake said carefully. "Like what?" "I asked him to be careful." "That's not unreasonable. It's the way you say it." "The man's just doing his job." Marcus's eyes hardened. "And I'm doing mine. This gym has standards, Jake. That's why we're successful. Maybe you should worry more about your coaching and less about my management style." Jake bit back his response. He needed this job. But he was getting tired of watching Marcus treat people like they were beneath him. Marcus left and the gym fell quiet except for the sound of Sam's mop moving across the floor in steady, rhythmic strokes. Sam had heard every word, just as he'd heard countless similar words over the past 2 years. He never responded, never argued. He'd learned long ago that some battles weren't worth fighting. But in the quiet of the empty gym, as Sam cleaned the same mats where Marcus Kane strutted like a king, there was something in the old man's eyes. Not anger exactly, not even hurt. It was something deeper, something patient, something that knew the truth that Marcus had forgotten. Respect isn't demanded. It's earned, and pride always comes before a fall. Sam finished mopping the main floor, then moved to clean the windows. Through the glass he could see the Chicago skyline, lights twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Marcus Kane was probably celebrating another successful day, completely unaware that his carefully built world was about to be shaken to its foundation. Because the thing about underestimating people is simple. You never know who you're really dealing with until it's too late. Saturday mornings at Elite Combat, gym where Marcus Kane staged, and he performed like a star. The place buzzed with energy as fighters wrapped their hands, heavy bags swung from chains, and the smell of sweat mixed with determination filled the air. Marcus moved through the crowd like a celebrity, stopping to correct someone's stance here, offering advice there, always making sure everyone saw him working. "Keep those hands up, Jennifer. What did I tell you about protecting your face?" Marcus called out to a woman practicing her jab cross combination. She nodded quickly, adjusting her guard while Marcus moved on, barely waiting for her response. Jake was running warm-ups with the beginners in the corner, his patient voice a stark contrast to Marcus's commanding shouts. He'd been Marcus's right hand for 3 years, and while he respected what Marcus had built, lately something felt off. The success had changed him, or maybe it had just revealed who he really was. "All right, everyone. Water break." Marcus clapped his hands twice, sharp and loud. "Back in 5 minutes. We're doing sparring drills next, so get your headgear on." As the students dispersed, Marcus checked his watch. 8:52. Derek Chen would arrive in 8 minutes, and everything needed to be perfect. This wasn't just another client. Derek Chen represented everything Marcus wanted. Money, status, connections to Chicago's elite. If he could land Derek's son as a private client, other wealthy families would follow. Marcus could already see it. Elite Combat Gym, the exclusive training ground for the city's privileged youth. He straightened his coaching shirt, checked his reflection in the mirrored wall, and ran a hand over his closely cropped hair. He looked good, successful, like someone who'd made it. The front door opened, and Marcus's stomach dropped. It wasn't Derek Chen. It was Sam Washington, pushing his yellow cleaning cart through the entrance. "What the hell?" Marcus muttered under his breath before striding over. "Sam, your shift doesn't start until 9 tonight. What are you doing here?" Sam looked up, his lined face calm as always. "Morning, Mr. Kane. Got a call from the maintenance supervisor. Apparently someone had an incident in the men's locker room late last night. She asked if I could come in early and handle it before your Saturday rush." Marcus felt heat rising in his chest. Of course, some idiot probably left a mess, and now the janitor was here during his most important client meeting of the month. "Okay, fine, but I need you to stay completely out of sight. I have a very important potential client arriving in—" He checked his watch again. 7 minutes. "Can you just work in the back until after my meeting?" "Of course, sir. I'll stay in the locker rooms and storage areas. You won't even know I'm here." Sam's voice carried no resentment, no attitude, just quiet professionalism. "Good. Thank you." Marcus walked away before he had to continue the conversation. At exactly 9 o'clock, Derek Chen walked through the door with his teenage son, Brandon. Derek was a compact man with expensive glasses and the kind of athletic wear that cost more than most people's monthly rent, but had probably never seen actual exercise. Brandon shuffled behind him, eyes locked on his phone, thumbs moving in that constant scroll young people seemed incapable of stopping. "Mr. Chen." Marcus extended his hand, smile bright and practiced. "Marcus Kane. Welcome to Elite Combat Gym. This is the beginning of your son's transformation." Derek's handshake was firm, businesslike. "Impressive setup you've got here." Brandon put the phone away. Brandon sighed dramatically but pocketed the device, looking around the gym with the enthusiasm of someone being forced to visit a museum. "Let me show you what we offer," Marcus said, launching into his tour. He'd given this presentation dozens of times, knew exactly where to pause, which fighters to introduce, how to emphasize his championship credentials. "We're not just teaching people to fight, Mr. Chen. We're building warriors. Mental toughness, discipline, respect. These are the foundations of what we do here." They walked past the row of heavy bags where fighters were working combinations. Marcus pointed out his advanced students, dropped names of local MMA events where his fighters had competed, painted a picture of excellence and success. "Brandon's got potential. I can see it already," Marcus lied smoothly. Brandon looked like he'd never done an athletic activity in his life. 6 months of training with me and you won't recognize him. Not just physically, but mentally. That's my guarantee." Derek nodded, clearly interested. "He needs structure. Too much time on devices, no real challenges in his life. His mother and I think martial arts could teach him what we can't." They were standing near the octagon cage now, the centerpiece of the gym. Marcus was explaining his private training packages when he heard the storage closet door open behind them. Sam emerged, carrying a mop bucket in one hand and a bottle of industrial cleaner in the other. He was trying to be discreet, moving along the wall toward the utility sink in the corner. But the storage closet was directly behind where Marcus and Derek stood, and there was no way around them without interrupting. "Excuse me, gentlemen," Sam said softly, waiting respectfully for them to shift slightly. Marcus felt his jaw clench. He'd specifically told Sam to stay out of sight. Now here was the janitor, interrupting his crucial pitch, making his professional gym look like some place where the help wandered around during client meetings. "Sam." Marcus's voice had an edge to it. "We're in the middle of something here. Can this wait?" Sam paused, looking at the cleaning supplies in his hands. "I understand, Mr. Kane. It's just that these chemicals can't be left sitting out. Safety regulations. But I can certainly come back in a few minutes if you'd prefer." It was a reasonable response. Any normal person would have just stepped aside for 10 seconds, let Sam put away his supplies, and continued the conversation. But Marcus Kane wasn't thinking like a normal person. He was thinking like someone who needed to impress Derek Chen, someone who needed to demonstrate control, authority, dominance. He needed to show Derek that he ran this gym with an iron fist. "You know what, Sam?" Marcus's voice carried across the gym now, drawing attention from the fighters. "Maybe if you managed your time better, you wouldn't be interrupting important business meetings." This is a professional facility. We're trying to run a professional operation here. The gym started to go quiet. Conversations dropped off. Fighters slowed their training to watch. Sam stood there, bucket handle in his calloused hand, his face carefully neutral. Yes, sir. I apologize. I'll come back later. He turned to leave, and that should have been the end of it. But Marcus felt the eyes on him. Derek's, Brandon's, his fighters, Jake's. He felt the need to drive the point home, to make absolutely clear who was in charge. You see this, Derek? Marcus gestured broadly, playing to his audience now. This is what I teach my fighters. It's all about choices. Every single day we make choices that determine who we become. I chose to dedicate myself to excellence. I chose to build something meaningful. Some people, he glanced towards Sam's back, they choose the easier path. They choose to settle. To accept mediocrity. That's the fundamental difference between champions and everyone else. Several fighters exchanged uncomfortable glances. Jake, across the room, set down the pads he was holding and shook his head slowly. Brandon Chen looked confused and a little disturbed. Even Derek shifted his weight, uncomfortable. Sam stopped walking. For 3 long seconds he stood there, his back to Marcus Kane and the assembled crowd. Then slowly he turned around. Mr. Kane, Sam said, his voice quiet but somehow filling the entire space. Respect costs nothing. The simple statement landed like a physical blow. It wasn't angry, wasn't loud or confrontational. Just 5 words spoken with calm dignity that somehow made Marcus Kane look small and petty in his own gym. A couple of fighters actually nodded. One whispered "damn" under his breath. Marcus felt his face flush hot. He'd been challenged. In front of his potential client, in front of his students, this janitor had just made him look foolish with 5 simple words. His ego wouldn't allow it. Excuse me? Marcus stepped forward, his body language aggressive. You want to lecture me about respect? In my gym? You work for me, old man. You're here because I allow you to be here. So how about you remember your place and go back to mopping floors? Marcus, come on, man. Jake tried to intervene, but Marcus waved him off. Sam remained perfectly still, his expression unchanged. I meant no disrespect, Mr. Kane. I'm just trying to do honest work. Honest work? Marcus laughed, but it sounded harsh. Honest work is building something. Creating something. Leading people to be better. Not just cleaning up other people's messes for minimum wage. The cruelty of the words hung in the air. Derek Chen pulled Brandon slightly closer, his interest in signing up clearly evaporating. And then Marcus Kane, drunk on his own righteousness, said the words that would change everything. You want to talk about respect, old man? Fine. Let's settle this the way we settle everything in this cage. You and me. Right here. Unless you're scared. Unless you'd rather stick to what you know, mopping floors and keeping your mouth shut. The gym went completely silent. Even the background music someone had been playing seemed to cut out. Jake dropped the training pads with a clatter. Marcus, what are you doing? Marcus ignored him, eyes locked on Sam. Well, what's it gonna be? Sam carefully set down his bucket. He looked at Marcus for a long moment, then started walking toward the storage closet. Marcus smirked, assuming victory, but Sam wasn't leaving. He opened the storage closet, methodically put away his cleaning supplies, each movement deliberate and careful. Then he closed the door, wiped his hands on his work pants, and walked directly toward Marcus Kane. He stopped 3 feet away and met Marcus's eyes with a gaze that was steady, clear and completely unafraid. Tomorrow, Sam said quietly. 6 p.m., I accept. The gym exploded in shocked murmurs and exclamations. Marcus's confident smirk faltered for just a heartbeat before returning. You're serious? Completely serious, Mr. Kane. You want to fight? We'll fight. Tomorrow evening. 6 o'clock. Right here in your cage. Marcus forced a laugh. Old man, you have no idea what you just agreed to. But fine, tomorrow at 6. Everyone here will witness what happens when you forget your place. Sam gave a single nod, then turned and walked toward the exit. Every eye followed him. His walk was unhurried, his shoulders square, his head high. He pushed open the glass door and stepped out into the Saturday morning sunshine, leaving behind a gym full of people who had just witnessed something they didn't fully understand. Derek Chen cleared his throat awkwardly. Well, that was unexpected. Brandon, let's go. We'll be in touch, Mr. Kane. They left quickly. Marcus's big client, his expansion plans, gone. Jake approached, holding up his phone. Marcus, before you go through with this, there's something you need to... I don't need to see anything, Jake. Tomorrow at 6. Everyone's going to learn a lesson about respecting Marcus Kane. Jake looked at his phone, at the old fight footage of a younger Sam destroying trained fighters, and sighed. Yeah, Jake said quietly. Someone's definitely going to learn a lesson. The rest of Saturday passed in a strange blur for Marcus Kane. After Derek Chen left with his son, the energy in the gym shifted. His fighters trained, but there was something different in the air. Whispers, sidelong glances. Marcus caught fragments of conversations that stopped when he walked by. Did that really just happen? The janitor accepted? Is he crazy? This is going to be bad. Marcus tried to ignore it all. He coached his afternoon classes with extra intensity, pushing his students harder than usual, as if proving his dominance over them would somehow validate what had happened that morning. But his mind kept drifting back to Sam's face. That calm, that absolute lack of fear, it bothered him more than he wanted to admit. By 6 p.m., Marcus was alone in his office, staring at his computer screen without really seeing it. The gym had emptied out. Even Jake had left early, claiming he had family plans, though his tone suggested otherwise. Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. He should call someone, maybe his old coach from when he was competing, maybe one of his fighter friends, someone who would reassure him that tomorrow would be fine, that he'd made the right call, that putting an old janitor in his place was justified. But he didn't call anyone. Instead, he found himself typing Samuel Washington fighter into Google. His finger hovered over the search button for a long moment before he locked his phone and tossed it on the desk. I don't need to research some old man, he muttered to himself. This is ridiculous. Meanwhile, across town in a small apartment in Pilsen, Jake Rodriguez sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open. His wife, Maria, was cooking dinner, but Jake couldn't take his eyes off the screen. You've been staring at that thing for 20 minutes, Maria said, stirring a pot of rice. What's so interesting? I'm trying to save my boss from making the biggest mistake of his life, Jake replied, scrolling through page after page of search results. He'd been digging since he left the gym. Samuel Washington fighter had returned nothing useful at first. Too common a name. But Jake had a good memory. He'd heard stories when he was younger, training at a different gym on the south side. Stories about underground fighters in the 90s, before MMA was legal in most states. Before the UFC became mainstream, there was one name that always came up in those stories, spoken with reverence by the old-timers. The Silent Storm. Jake typed it in. Silent Storm Fighter Chicago 1990s. The search results made his stomach drop. The first hit was a forum post from 2008. Titled Whatever Happened to the Silent Storm. Jake clicked it and started reading. The post was from an old-school martial arts enthusiast asking if anyone remembered a fighter from the Chicago underground circuit in the mid-90s. The replies were unanimous. Silent Storm was unstoppable. Never saw anyone move like that. Watched him fight in a warehouse in 1994. He put down 3 guys in one night. 3 different weight classes. Didn't even look tired. My cousin trained with him briefly, said he was the most naturally gifted fighter he'd ever seen. Then he just disappeared. Jake kept clicking. He found a grainy video on an old martial arts archive site. The footage was terrible quality, shot on someone's camcorder at what looked like an illegal fighting event. But even through the poor resolution, Jake could see it. A younger Sam Washington, probably in his early 30s, moving with a fluidity that seemed almost impossible. His opponent was bigger, aggressive, throwing heavy punches. Sam barely seemed to move, just slight adjustments of his feet, minimal head movement. Then so fast the camera almost missed it, Sam's counterpunch. The bigger man dropped like someone had cut his strings. Dios mío, Jake whispered. What is it? Maria came over, looking at the screen. That's Sam, the janitor at our gym. 25 years ago, they watched 3 more videos. Each one showed the same thing. Sam's opponents would attack with everything they had, and Sam would dismantle them with an economy of movement that made it look easy. No wasted motion. No showboating. Just pure, efficient technique. In one video, you could hear the crowd chanting, Silent Storm. Silent Storm. Jake found an article from a 1997 Chicago alternative newspaper, back when they used to cover the underground fighting scene. The headline read, The Mystery Fighter, Silent Storm Retires Undefeated. The article explained that Samuel Silent Storm Washington had walked away from fighting after a brutal match left him hospitalized with internal injuries. He'd won the fight but spent 2 weeks in the ICU. The reporter had tried to interview him afterward, but Sam had declined, saying only, "I have nothing left to prove, and everything to live for." According to the article, Sam had a young daughter and had recently lost his wife to cancer. He quit fighting to raise his child. Jake sat back in his chair, running his hands through his hair. Marcus has no idea what he's gotten himself into. "Are you going to tell him?" Maria asked. "I tried. He wouldn't listen. He's too stubborn, too proud." "So what are you going to do?" Jake thought about it for a long moment. "I'm going to make sure someone's there with a first aid kit tomorrow. Because Marcus is going to need it." Sunday morning arrived with gray skies that matched Marcus's mood. He'd barely slept, his mind replaying the confrontation over and over. Each time he justified his actions a little more. Sam had disrespected him. In front of a client. In his own gym. What was he supposed to do, just take it? Marcus arrived at the gym at 8 a.m., even though it was closed on Sundays. He needed to train, to move, to convince his body that everything was fine. He wrapped his hands carefully, pulled on his gloves, and started working the heavy bag. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut. The familiar rhythm usually cleared his mind, but today it didn't help. His punches felt off. Too tense. Too angry. After an hour, he stopped, breathing hard, and checked his phone. No messages, no calls. Usually his fighters would be texting him, asking questions, sharing videos, keeping him connected. Today, nothing. He opened Instagram and scrolled through his feed. Several of his students had posted yesterday, but none of them had tagged him or mentioned the gym. That was unusual. Then he saw it. A post from Tommy, one of his younger fighters. It was a screenshot of a text conversation. "Dude, are you going to the gym tomorrow at 6? "Yeah, I wouldn't miss it. Coach Marcus is gonna regret this. I feel bad for the old guy. He seems nice. I don't think the old guy needs us to feel bad for him. My dad said he saw Silent Storm fight back in the day. If that's the same guy— Wait, what? Who's Silent Storm?" The conversation continued, but Marcus had stopped reading. Silent Storm, there was that name again. Jake had mentioned something yesterday. Tried to show him a video. Marcus had refused to watch. His pride told him it didn't matter. Some old videos from decades ago had nothing to do with reality. Sam was 58 years old. Marcus was in his prime. This wasn't even a real question. But a small voice in the back of his mind, the voice he'd been ignoring since yesterday morning, whispered, "Then why won't you watch the videos?" Marcus locked his phone and went back to the heavy bag. By noon, word had spread throughout Chicago's MMA community. The gym would be open at 6 p.m. for a special event. Marcus hadn't advertised it, but his fighters had told their friends, who'd told their coaches, who'd told their students. What started as an embarrassing incident on Saturday morning had become the worst-kept secret in the city's martial arts scene. Jake arrived at the gym around 4 p.m. to find Marcus shadowboxing in front of the mirror. "You're really going through with this," Jake said. It wasn't a question. "Of course I am. I don't back down from challenges, Jake, you know that." "Marcus, there's something you need to understand about Sam." "I don't need to understand anything about Sam except that he's about to learn a very painful lesson about respect." Jake pulled out his phone one more time. "Just watch one video. That's all I'm asking. One video, and if you still want to do this, I'll shut up about it." Marcus stopped shadowboxing. He looked at Jake for a long moment, then at the phone in Jake's hand. His pride screamed at him not to look, not to show any doubt. But something else, some small part of him that was still rational, made him nod. "Fine. One video." Jake pulled up the clearest footage he'd found. Marcus watched in silence as a younger Sam moved through opponents like water flowing around rocks. The video was less than 2 minutes long, showing 3 separate fights, each ending with Sam's devastating precision. When it ended, Marcus handed the phone back. "That was 25 years ago, Jake. Guy's almost 60 now. I don't care how good he was back then. Marcus, enough. I appreciate your concern, but I've made my decision. Now are you going to help me warm up, or are you going to keep trying to talk me out of this?" Jake sighed deeply. "I'll help you warm up. But Marcus, please, go easy on him. Make your point and stop. Don't try to hurt him." Marcus didn't respond. He just turned back to the mirror and continued his shadowboxing, watching his reflection throw combinations, seeing what he wanted to see, a champion, a coach, a man who commanded respect. He didn't see what everyone else was starting to see, a man whose pride was about to cost him everything. At 5:30 p.m., people started arriving. Marcus's regular fighters came first, then others he didn't recognize. Friends of friends, people who'd heard about Silent Storm and wanted to see if the legend was real. By 5:45, there were over 60 people in the gym, far more than Marcus had expected. Jake set up a corner for Marcus, laying out water, a towel, and his mouth guard. On the opposite side of the cage, he set up another corner, though he doubted Sam would show up early enough to need it. At 5:58, the gym door opened. Sam Washington walked in wearing simple black athletic pants and a gray t-shirt. His feet were bare. He carried no bag, no equipment, nothing except a presence that made the crowded gym go quiet. He walked straight to the cage, climbed through the ropes, and stood in his corner. His face showed no emotion. No anger, no fear, no anticipation, just calm. Marcus watched from his corner and, for the first time since Saturday morning, felt something he hadn't expected. Doubt, but it was too late to back out now. Everyone was watching. The fight was about to begin. The atmosphere inside Elite Combat Gym felt electric and uncomfortable at the same time. People packed into every available space, lining the walls, sitting on benches, even standing on equipment to get a better view of the cage. Marcus had never seen this many people in his gym at once, not even during his biggest events. Jake stood near the cage entrance, arms crossed, watching the crowd with growing concern. This wasn't how these things were supposed to go. There were no officials, no proper referee protocols, no medical staff on standby. He'd brought a first aid kit from his car and set it ringside, but that suddenly felt inadequate. "This is crazy," muttered Tommy, one of Marcus's younger students standing next to Jake. "Coach shouldn't be doing this." "No, he shouldn't," Jake agreed quietly. "But try telling Marcus Kane something he doesn't want to hear." Across the gym, Marcus sat in his corner, bouncing on his toes, rolling his shoulders. He'd gone through his full warm-up routine, shadowboxing, pad work with Jake, stretching. His body felt good, loose and ready. He was wearing his competition gear, black fight shorts with gold trim, hand wraps under 4-ounce MMA gloves, his mouth guard already in place. He looked like a professional fighter preparing for a sanctioned bout. Sam, by contrast, sat perfectly still on a stool in his corner. He'd declined the gloves Jake offered him, saying he preferred to wrap his hands with simple cloth tape. Someone had given him a mouth guard, which he'd accepted with a polite nod. He wore no shoes, no shin guards, no protective equipment except the tape and the mouth guard. He looked like a man waiting for a bus. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice called out. It was one of Marcus's advanced students, Jeremy, who'd apparently decided to act as announcer. "We're about to witness a light sparring session between Coach Marcus Kane and, Sam Washington." "Light sparring session?" Jake muttered. "Is that what we're calling this?" Marcus stood up and walked to the center of the cage. The crowd's energy shifted, voices rising with anticipation. Some people pulled out their phones, starting to record. Sam rose from his stool with an easy grace that didn't match his 58 years. He walked to meet Marcus in the center, his bare feet making no sound on the mat. Jake climbed into the cage to act as referee, though he felt completely unqualified for what was about to happen. "Okay, listen. This is supposed to be a controlled sparring session. We touch gloves, we keep it respectful, and if anyone taps or I call stop, we stop immediately. Understood?" Marcus nodded, his eyes locked on Sam. Sam simply looked at Jake and said, "I understand." "Touch gloves," Jake instructed. Marcus extended his gloves, but his body language was dismissive, casual. Sam reached out to touch them, and Marcus pulled his hands back at the last second. A disrespectful move meant to assert dominance. Several people in the crowd groaned or shook their heads. Sam's expression didn't change. He simply lowered his hands and took a step back, settling into a stance that looked almost casual. His hands were up but relaxed, his weight balanced perfectly between both feet. Marcus fell into his fighting stance, much more aggressive, weight forward, ready to explode. "All right," Jake said reluctantly, backing toward the cage wall. "Go." Marcus didn't waste time. He shot forward immediately, closing the distance with a quick combination. Jab, cross, hook. Fast punches meant to overwhelm, to show everyone watching that there were levels to this game. Sam's head moved, Not dramatically, not with exaggerated slips or ducks. Just minimal adjustments, each punch missing by inches. Marcus might as well have been throwing at smoke. Marcus reset and tried again. Low kick to the leg followed by a straight right hand. The kick landed but seemed to have no effect. The punch missed entirely as Sam angled out, creating space. For 30 seconds, Marcus pressed forward, throwing combinations, mixing in kicks, trying different angles. The crowd watched in growing amazement as Sam defended everything without throwing a single strike back. He just moved, barely seeming to put in any effort, making Marcus look slow and predictable. "Come on, old man. Fight back," Marcus shouted, frustration creeping into his voice. He threw a wild overhand right, putting real power behind it. Sam leaned back just enough, the punch sailing past his face. Marcus stumbled slightly from the momentum, and for a fraction of a second he was off balance. Sam could have countered then. Everyone watching could see the opening. But he didn't. He just stepped back, giving Marcus space to reset. "What are you doing?" Marcus demanded, breathing harder now. "This is a fight." "Act like it." Sam remained silent, his breathing calm and controlled. His eyes stayed on Marcus, tracking every movement. But his face showed no aggression, no competitive fire. "Just focus." Marcus charged in again, more aggressive now, his technique getting sloppier as frustration took over. He threw a kick that Sam checked effortlessly, followed by a Superman punch that Sam ducked. Marcus grabbed for a clinch, trying to use his size advantage, but Sam's positioning was perfect. He controlled the inside space, his body mechanics making it impossible for Marcus to establish dominance. After another minute, Marcus broke away, chest heaving. "Stop running. Stand and fight like a man." It was a ridiculous thing to say. Sam hadn't run anywhere. He'd been in the center of the cage the entire time. But Marcus needed an excuse for why he couldn't land clean strikes on a 58-year-old janitor. The crowd was murmuring now, the energy changing from anticipation to amazement. People were watching something they'd never expected to see. Marcus Kane, respected MMA coach, being completely shut down by an old man who hadn't even thrown a punch. "Marcus," Jake called out. "Maybe that's enough, man. You made your point." "I haven't made anything yet," Marcus snapped. His face was flushed, sweat dripping from his forehead. He'd been fighting for less than 3 minutes and was already breathing hard, the tension and frustration burning through his energy faster than any opponent ever had. Sam stood there, still calm, still centered, waiting. Marcus tried to think strategically. Clearly the old man had some defensive skills, fine, but defense couldn't win a fight. Eventually Sam would have to engage, and when he did, Marcus would make him pay. He decided to change tactics. Instead of wild aggression, he'd be more measured. Pick his shots. Time it right. Marcus circled, and Sam turned with him, maintaining distance. Marcus feinted a jab, watched Sam's reaction. Minimal movement, perfect economy. Marcus threw a low kick to the lead leg, not too hard, just to gauge distance. Sam lifted his leg slightly, checking it. Then Marcus saw it. Or thought he did. An opening. Sam's right hand dropped just a fraction as he checked the kick. Marcus exploded forward with a right cross, putting everything he had behind it. This was it. The punch that would end this embarrassment and prove to everyone watching that Marcus Kane was still the alpha in his own. "Jim, the punch should have landed square on Sam's jaw. It didn't. Sam wasn't there anymore. He'd slipped inside Marcus's punch, so close they were almost touching. Time seemed to slow down. Marcus felt Sam's presence beside him, felt the shift in the air, felt the devastating control of someone who'd spent decades mastering the art of fighting. Then Sam spoke for the first time since entering the cage. His voice was quiet, meant only for Marcus to hear. "Are you ready to learn?" Before Marcus could process the words, Sam moved. It wasn't a punch exactly, more like a controlling technique. Sam's hand found Marcus's extended arm, controlled it, and in the same motion, his other hand touched Marcus's chest. Not a strike, just a touch. But that touch, combined with a subtle foot sweep Marcus never saw coming, sent him stumbling backward. Marcus caught himself before falling, but barely. His legs felt uncertain beneath him. The crowd gasped. "What the hell was that?" Someone whispered loudly. Marcus's pride was screaming now. The old man had finally engaged, and he'd made Marcus look foolish without even throwing a real strike. Unacceptable. "Okay," Marcus said, his voice shaky with adrenaline and anger. "Okay, now we're really fighting." He charged forward again, this time with genuine aggression. No more holding back. No more testing. He threw heavy punches, real power behind each one. Hook, uppercut, overhand right. Combinations meant to hurt, to damage, to put Sam down and end this. Sam's movement changed. He was still defensive, still not attacking, but now there was something different in how he moved. More fluidity, more complexity. He slipped a hook by millimeters, ducked under a cross, parried an uppercut. His footwork took him around Marcus in a small circle, and suddenly Marcus was the one off balance, throwing punches at angles that felt wrong. Then Sam caught him. Marcus threw a hook, committed too much weight to it, and Sam simply stepped in and caught him in a clinch. Not an aggressive wrestling clinch, but something more controlled. Sam's arms were positioned perfectly, his body mechanics flawless. Marcus tried to break free, tried to use his strength, but it was like fighting against perfectly positioned leverage. He couldn't move. And then Sam spoke again. Quiet words that only Marcus could hear over the crowd noise. Strength without humility is just violence. Skill without respect is just cruelty. Sam released him gently, pushing him back but not throwing him, creating space again, giving Marcus another chance to reconsider. But Marcus was beyond reason now. All he could see was red. His reputation was being destroyed in front of 60 witnesses. His authority, his image, everything he'd built was crumbling, because one old janitor refused to just lay down and take his beating. "I'm done playing," Marcus growled. He faked a punch and shot in for a takedown, a move he'd executed successfully hundreds of times in training and competition. His technique was good, his timing acceptable. Against most opponents it would have worked. Sam's knee came up not hard but perfectly timed to check the takedown. Marcus crashed into it, his forward momentum stopped completely. He stumbled back, seeing stars, his nose bleeding. The gym went silent except for Marcus's heavy breathing and the drip of blood hitting the mat. Jake stepped forward. "That's it. We're done." "No," Marcus shouted, wiping blood from his face. "We're not done. Not until he fights me. Not until he throws a real punch." He looked at Sam, his eyes wild. "What are you waiting for? Hit me. Show everyone what you've got. Or are you just going to dance around like a coward?" Sam's expression changed for the first time. Not to anger, but to something that might have been sadness. He looked at Marcus like a teacher watching a student fail to understand a simple but crucial lesson. "If you insist," Sam said quietly. He shifted his stance slightly, his weight settling differently. To the trained eyes in the crowd, the change was obvious. Sam had been defensive this entire time. Now he was ready to actually fight. Marcus charged one final time, throwing everything he had left. A desperate, wild combination with no defense, no strategy, just pure aggression fueled by wounded pride. Sam moved like water, finding a path downhill. He slipped inside Marcus's punches, his footwork perfect, his timing impossible. And then, so fast that most of the crowd didn't even see it start, Sam threw a single punch. It wasn't flashy, wasn't a spinning technique or a jumping strike. Just a straight right hand, thrown with perfect form, perfect timing, perfect placement. It traveled maybe 8 inches total. It caught Marcus on the jaw, not with brutal force meant to injure, but with surgical precision meant to teach. Marcus's legs went out from under him. He dropped to his knees, eyes unfocused, his equilibrium completely gone. He wasn't knocked out, but he wasn't all there either. He knelt on the mat, breathing hard, blood from his nose mixing with sweat, his hands on the canvas for support. The entire gym stood in absolute silence. Sam walked toward him slowly, his footsteps soundless on the mat. He stopped in front of Marcus and extended his hand. "The fight is over," Sam said gently. Marcus looked up at that hand, at Sam's weathered face, at the man he'd mocked and dismissed and challenged, and something inside Marcus Kane finally broke. Not his body, his ego. Tears mixed with the blood and sweat on his face as he took Sam's hand. The silence in Elite Combat Gym felt heavier than any sound. 60 people stood frozen, phones still recording, mouths slightly open, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Marcus Kane, the confident coach who'd built his reputation on dominance and authority, knelt on the mat like a broken statue. Sam helped him to his feet with steady hands. Marcus's legs wobbled, and Sam kept a supportive grip on his arm until he found his balance. Jake rushed over with a towel and water bottle, his face a mixture of concern and relief that it was finally over. "Sit down, Marcus," Jake said softly, guiding him toward the corner stool. Marcus sat heavily, his chest still heaving. Blood dripping from his nose onto the towel Jake pressed into his hands. His mind was spinning, but not from the punch. That single strike had done something worse than knock him out. It had shattered every assumption he'd built his identity around. The crowd began to stir, uncomfortable whispers spreading through the gym. Some people were already heading toward the exit, unsure what to do with what they'd seen. Others stayed, transfixed by the scene in the cage. Sam walked to his corner and sat down on his own stool, breathing calmly, barely looking tired. He unwrapped the cloth tape from his hands slowly, methodically, as if he'd just finished a light workout rather than a fight. Jake climbed out of the cage to disperse the crowd. "Show's over, folks. Give them some privacy, please. Everyone needs to leave now." There were murmurs of protest, but Jake's tone left no room for argument. Gradually, people filed out, still talking in hushed voices, pulling out their phones to immediately share what they'd witnessed. Within minutes, the gym was nearly empty except for Jake, Marcus, Sam, and a handful of Marcus's closest students who lingered near the door, unsure whether to stay or go. Marcus finally found his voice. It came out hoarse, broken. "Why didn't you finish me?" Sam looked up from unwrapping his hands. "Finish you? That punch. You could have put me out cold. Could have humiliated me completely. Why didn't you?" Sam set the cloth tape aside and stood up. He walked across the cage to where Marcus sat, his bare feet making soft sounds on the blood-stained mat. When he reached Marcus, he crouched down so they were at eye level. "Because this was never about humiliation, Mr. Kane. You challenged me because your pride was wounded. I accepted because you needed to learn something that words couldn't teach you." "And what's that?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "That real strength has nothing to do with who you can beat down. It's about who you can lift up." Sam gestured to the empty gym around them. "You built something impressive here. This facility, your knowledge, your ability to teach, these are real gifts. But you've been using them to feed your ego instead of helping people grow." Marcus stared at the blood on the towel in his hands.
"I grew up with nothing."
"Absolute poverty. I fought my way out of that. I made something of myself. I thought that meant I'd earned the right to be what? Superior, above others?" Sam's voice was gentle but firm. "You survived hard times and achieved success. That's worth celebrating. But the lessons you should have learned from poverty, humility, compassion, understanding, you threw those away. You decided that being better than your past meant being better than other people." Jake had climbed back into the cage and was listening quietly. Tommy and a few other students had moved closer, drawn by the conversation despite Jake's earlier instructions. Marcus's shoulders began to shake. Not from pain, but from something deeper. Years of armor, carefully constructed walls meant to protect the poor kid from the south side were crumbling. And underneath all that defensive pride was just a scared boy who'd never felt like he was enough. "I don't know how to be anything else," Marcus admitted, tears flowing freely now. "If I'm not the best, the toughest, the one everyone looks up to, then what am I?" Sam placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You're a teacher who has knowledge worth sharing. You're a coach who can help people achieve things they didn't think possible. You're a human being who deserves respect not because you demand it, but because you give it. That's who you are when you stop trying so hard to prove something. How do you do it?" Marcus looked up at Sam with genuine curiosity. "How do you have that kind of skill, that kind of power, and just mop floors, clean toilets? Let people like me treat you like you're nothing?" Sam smiled for the first time since entering the gym. It was a warm smile, full of hard-earned wisdom. "Because I learned what you're learning right now. I used to fight to prove I was the best. Every match, every opponent, it was about validating my worth. Then I nearly died in a cage and I realized I'd been asking the wrong question my entire life." "What question?" "I kept asking, am I the strongest? When I should have been asking, am I at peace?" Sam stood up slowly. "When my wife died, I had a daughter to raise. Medical school isn't cheap. The janitor job at a hospital paid for her education. I mopped floors so she could become a doctor. And you know what? I was more proud of that than any fight I ever won." Marcus absorbed this, a new understanding slowly forming. "You stopped fighting to prove something and started working to build something." "Exactly. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth to everyone else, you discover your actual worth to yourself. That's when the ego stops controlling you." Sam picked up his simple gym bag. "Real power is knowing when not to use it. Real strength is helping others find their own. That's the lesson, Mr. Kane. Jake handed Marcus an ice pack and Marcus pressed it to his swelling jaw. The physical pain was nothing compared to the mental reconstruction happening inside him. "I owe you an apology," Marcus said, his voice steadier now. "Not just for today. For every disrespectful comment, every dismissive gesture, every time I treated you like you were beneath me. I'm sorry, Sam, I'm truly sorry." Sam nodded, accepting the apology. "I forgive you. But the real question is, can you forgive yourself? Can you look at who you've been and decide to become someone better?" Marcus thought about Derek Chen walking away, about the discomfort on his students' faces, about all the people he'd belittled in his climb to success. The weight of it felt crushing. "I don't know if I can fix all the damage I've done. You can't fix the past. None of us can." Sam moved toward the cage exit. "But you can choose who you are tomorrow. That's the only power any of us really have. The choice to be better than we were yesterday." Tommy stepped forward hesitantly. "Coach, we don't think any less of you. We saw something incredible tonight." "Not the fight, what happened after?" The other students nodded in agreement. One of them, Michelle, spoke up. "You've always told us that the best fighters are willing to learn from anyone. Maybe it's time to take your own advice." Marcus looked at his students, young people who'd trusted him to guide them, who'd absorbed not just his techniques but his attitudes. He saw the opportunity to change not just himself but the culture he'd created. "You're right," Marcus said, standing up with effort. His legs were still shaky, but his resolve was strengthening. "I've been teaching you all wrong. Not the techniques, those are solid. But everything else. The attitude, the ego, the way I've treated people." He turned to Sam, who was halfway out of the cage. "Sam, wait, please." Sam paused and turned back. "Don't leave yet. I want to ask you something." Marcus took a deep breath. "Would you consider training me? Not in fighting, I mean in everything else. The discipline, the humility, the peace you have. I need to learn what you know." Sam studied Marcus for a long moment. The gym was completely quiet again, but this silence felt different. Hopeful instead of heavy. "Mr. Kane, I'm just a janitor who used to fight. I'm not a life coach or a guru. You're more than that, and we both know it. You're someone who figured out what I'm just now realizing I need to learn. Please, help me become better than I am." Sam looked at the blood on the mat, at the humbled coach standing before him, at the young students watching this moment of transformation. He thought about his daughter, now a doctor, who'd learned from his example that honest work and good character mattered more than glory or pride. "All right," Sam finally said, "but understand, this kind of training is harder than any physical workout. It means looking at uncomfortable truths about yourself every single day. It means changing habits you've built over decades. Are you ready for that?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Yes, I'm ready." Sam set down his bag and walked back to the center of the cage. He extended his hand again, but this time not to help Marcus up from defeat, to invite him into something new. Marcus took it. And in that handshake, something shifted in Elite Combat Gym. The foundation didn't change, but what would be built upon it was about to become something much more valuable than another factory producing tough fighters. It was about to become a place where people learned to be strong and kind, powerful and humble, capable and compassionate. The real fight was just beginning. But for the first time in his life, Marcus Kane understood he wasn't fighting an opponent. He was fighting to become who he was always meant to be. 3 weeks had passed since the fight that changed everything. The video had spread across social media like wildfire. Not the entire fight, but the moment after. Someone had captured Marcus on his knees, tears mixing with blood, taking Sam's hand. That image had been shared thousands of times with captions ranging from mockery to admiration. Marcus had stopped checking social media after the first few days. It didn't matter anymore what strangers thought. What mattered was the work. Every morning now, Marcus arrived at the gym at 5 a.m., not to train his body, but to train his character. Sam would meet him there, and they'd sit in the empty gym just talking, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for an hour. Sam never lectured. He just asked questions that made Marcus think harder than any workout ever had. "Why do you coach?" Sam had asked on the first morning. "To make champions," Marcus had answered automatically. "No, why do you really coach?" Marcus had sat with that question for 3 full minutes before answering. "Because when I was young, I had a coach who believed in me when nobody else did. He saw potential in a skinny kid from the projects. I guess I want to be that for someone else." Then why were you pushing people away instead of building them up? That question had hurt more than any punch. Now on a Tuesday morning, Marcus sat across from Sam in the office, watching dawn light creep through the windows. They'd been meeting like this every day, and Marcus had filled a journal with notes from their conversations. "Tell me about yesterday's incident with Michelle," Sam said, sipping coffee from a simple thermos. Marcus grimaced. Michelle was one of his intermediate students, a 32-year-old accountant who trained after work. Yesterday, she'd been struggling with a technique, getting frustrated with herself. The old Marcus would have pushed harder, maybe said something cutting to motivate her through shame. "I saw her getting upset," Marcus said slowly. "My first instinct was to tell her she was being soft, that champions don't give up. But then I remembered what you said about meeting people where they are. And I asked her what was wrong. Really asked, not just demanded she push through it." Marcus looked down at his coffee. "Turns out she just found out her mom has cancer. She came to training because she didn't want to sit home crying, but her head wasn't in it." "What did you do?" "I told her to take the rest of class off. Sit in the office, breathe, or leave if she needed to. I said we'd work on that technique another day when she was ready." Marcus looked up at Sam. "She cried. Then she thanked me and said it was the first time anyone at the gym had treated her like a person instead of just an athlete." Sam nodded approvingly. "That's growth, Marcus. Real growth." "It felt better than any championship win," Marcus admitted, seeing her face when she realized I actually cared about her as a human being, not just as someone paying membership fees. The gym door opened, and Jake walked in carrying a box of donuts. This had become their routine. Jake would bring breakfast and the three men would talk before the day officially started. "Morning," Jake said, setting the box on the desk. "You see the email from Derek Chen?" Marcus's stomach tightened. He hadn't heard from Derek since the man had walked out 3 weeks ago. "No, what did it say?" Jake pulled out his phone and read, "Mr. Kane, I've been following the developments at your gym through mutual acquaintances. I'd like to schedule another meeting to discuss training for Brandon. The culture seems to have shifted in ways that align with what we're looking for. Please call me at your earliest convenience." Marcus sat back in his chair, stunned. "He wants to come back?" "Word travels fast in Chicago's fitness community," Sam said with a slight smile. "People are noticing the changes here. Your students are talking about how different the atmosphere is." It was true. Over the past 3 weeks, Marcus had been working to reshape the culture he'd created. He'd apologized to every member of his staff individually. He'd changed how he spoke to students, focusing on encouragement over intimidation. He'd even adjusted his teaching methods, taking time to understand each person's individual challenges rather than applying a one-size-fits-all aggressive approach. The results had been surprising. Instead of losing students embarrassed by their coach's public humbling, membership had actually increased. People who'd been intimidated by the gym's previous culture were now joining. Parents felt comfortable bringing their kids. The energy in the building had shifted from aggressive competition to supportive community. "There's something else," Jake said, a hint of pride in his voice. "Tommy asked if he could start a beginner's class specifically for people who are nervous about martial arts. He wants to create a judgment-free space for people to learn basics." "Tommy?" Marcus was surprised. Tommy had been one of his most aggressive students, always pushing to spar harder, compete more. "He said you inspired him. Said if Coach Marcus can admit he was wrong and change, then he can too." He realized he'd been copying your old attitude, treating newer students like they were beneath him. Marcus felt something warm in his chest. His transformation was rippling outward, affecting his students, changing them too. "Tell Tommy yes. Absolutely yes. I'll help him design the curriculum." Sam stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Chicago streets beginning to fill with morning traffic. "You know what's happening here, Marcus? You're building a legacy, not based on how many champions you can produce, but on how many lives you can positively impact." "I spent so many years thinking legacy meant trophies and titles," Marcus said quietly. "Those things aren't bad," Sam replied, "but they're not enough. A trophy sits on a shelf. Real legacy lives in the people you've helped become better versions of themselves." The office door opened again, and Marcus looked up to see a face he hadn't expected. It was one of his former students, David, who'd quit the gym about a year ago. Marcus had always assumed David left because he wasn't tough enough. "Coach Kane, can I talk to you for a minute?" "Of course. Come in." Marcus stood up, suddenly nervous about facing someone he'd likely driven away with his old attitude. David stepped inside, looking uncomfortable. I heard about what happened here a few weeks ago. Some friends sent me the video. And I heard things have changed? They have, Marcus said simply. I've changed. I wanted to tell you why I really left. David took a breath. It wasn't because the training was too hard. I loved the actual martial arts. I left because training here made me feel worthless. Every class you'd find something to criticize, some way to make me feel like I wasn't good enough. I started having anxiety attacks before coming to the gym. The words hit Marcus like physical blows. This was exactly what Sam had been trying to help him understand. The real damage his ego had caused. David, I'm so sorry. I thought I was motivating you. I thought being harsh was the same as being an effective coach. I was wrong and I hurt you. That's on me and I apologize. David blinked, clearly not expecting such a direct apology. Thank you for saying that. It actually means a lot, he paused. I wanted to ask, could I come back? I miss training, but I need to know the environment is different. Marcus felt tears threatening again. 3 weeks ago, he would have brushed this off, maybe even blamed David for being too sensitive. Now he understood the weight of responsibility that came with being a teacher. Yes, absolutely yes. And David, I promise you'll be treated with respect here. Every single day, if I slip back into old habits, I want you to call me out on it. Hold me accountable. They shook hands and David left with a smile, saying he'd see Marcus in the evening class. After David left, Sam put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. Do you understand now? That moment right there. That's more important than any fight you'll ever win. Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in his throat. The weeks continued to pass. Sam began joining some of the evening classes, not to teach fighting, but to share his philosophy with students who were interested. He talked about finding balance, about understanding that martial arts was as much about internal discipline as external technique. The students loved him, often staying late just to hear his stories. Marcus implemented new policies at the gym. A zero-tolerance rule for bullying or disrespect between students. Mandatory cool-down periods where students practiced breathing and meditation. A mentorship program where advanced students helped beginners not by showing off, but by genuinely supporting their growth. Jake had never been happier. This is what I always hoped the gym could be, he told Marcus one evening after class. You're finally becoming the coach I always believed you could be. 2 months after the fight, Sam announced he was retiring from his janitorial position. His daughter had finished her residency and had gotten a well-paying position at a hospital. She wanted her father to finally rest. Marcus threw a retirement party at the gym on a Saturday afternoon. He invited everyone, students, staff, even people from the broader Chicago martial arts community. The place was packed. When it was time for speeches, Marcus stood in the center of the cage where he'd been humbled, where he'd learned the most important lesson of his life. Most of you know the story of how I met Sam Washington. Marcus began, his voice carrying across the quiet gym. How I disrespected him, challenged him, and got taught a lesson I desperately needed. But what you might not know is what happened after. Sam didn't just beat me in a fight. He helped me rebuild myself into someone better. He looked at Sam, who stood off to the side, characteristically humble. Sam taught me that respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn through how you treat people, especially people who can do nothing for you. He taught me that real strength is about lifting others up, not putting them down. And he taught me that it's never too late to change, to become better, to choose humility over pride. Marcus's voice grew stronger. Because of Sam, this gym isn't just a place where people learn to fight anymore. It's a place where people learn to be strong and kind, powerful and humble, capable and compassionate. That's his legacy here, and I'm going to spend the rest of my career honoring it. The gym erupted in applause. Sam smiled, that same gentle smile that had somehow contained the power to change everything. After the party, as people were leaving, Sam and Marcus stood together one last time in the empty gym. You did good. Mr. Kane, Sam said, I'm proud of the man you've become. I couldn't have done it without you. You saved me from myself. No, Sam corrected gently. I just showed you the door. You're the one who chose to walk through it. That's all anyone can ever do. Choose to be better than they were yesterday. They shook hands and Sam walked toward the exit for the last time as an employee. But before he reached the door, he turned back. Marcus, keep teaching them. Not just the fighting, teach them the character. The world needs more people who understand that true strength protects, it doesn't dominate. I will, I promise. Sam nodded and walked out into the evening, his journey with Elite Combat Gym complete. Marcus stood alone in his gym, looking at the cage, the equipment, the space he'd built. It looked the same as it always had, but everything was different now. On the wall, Marcus had hung a simple plaque installed just that morning. It read, "Real strength is lifting others up, not putting them down. True respect is earned through character, not conquered through force." Below it, in smaller letters, "In honor of Samuel Silent Storm Washington, who taught us what it means to be truly strong." Marcus turned off the lights and locked the door, ready to return tomorrow and continue the work. Not the work of building champions, but the work of building good people who happen to also be fighters. That, he'd finally learned, was the only victory that really mattered.